Hello, welcome to this rendition of the NES htpc build. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this NES and I am going to build a PC inside this NES with as little of outside modification as possible. Basically I'm going to try to make it look the best as possible. The system's mainly going to be used for older emulation, Atari, NES, but not Super Nintendo or anything higher than that. So with that in mind, it needs to be basic and functional. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this motherboard, which is the Intel Atom, the DN2800MT, mainly for a couple reasons. One, you don't need an outside power supply, Pico PSU, because they have one built in. Right here is DC power in, and you can even wire DC power in right here. Another option, another reason I picked this option is it has passive cooling with the processor, so you don't have to buy a second processor, and it has passive cooling. It's not a very strong processor, it's an Atom. So you can run Windows. Windows 7 runs great on it. Don't plan on doing anything higher than Super Nintendo emulation on it. Nintendo 64 just starts to bog down, especially with this onboard video. But you do have HDMI, and you do have always-on power USBs. That's why they're yellow. And you do have gigabit Ethernet if you need that. Otherwise, you can just plug in a USB or this mini PCI Express right here. You can put in wireless, and right here it's a mini PCI Express, but it's also mSATA compatible. So with that in mind, I'll show you what else I've got. Cat 5 jack for the back, because the back of the Nintendo is indented back here, so I want it to stick out a little, make it a little bit easier. So I'm doing that jack and HDMI jack. There's a power jack for the back, where I'm going to be taking this wire here and connecting it directly to there and coming out to this chassis mount power, so you'll be able to plug in your power supply directly into the back. For USBs, the great thing about this board is it has plenty of USB. You've got two 9-pin connectors. Each one of these 9-pin connectors can do 2 USBs apiece, so that's 4 USBs. Plus you have another 4. It's all USB 2. I wish it was 3. Intel needs to update their stuff with these Atoms, but they're Atom processors. I don't know how much they can handle anyway. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the USB header cables there, extension cables, and using this little gizmo here, which is a USB header to double stack, and I will be able to mount those into these holes once they're fixed up. Sorry for the blurriness. This not great lighting in here, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. I will also be inside here. It will be black mounted plastic in here with, I'm not sure where exactly I'm going to mount the USB, but there will be a USB port, one of those double ports right in here, so you can just flip it up, put in your USB stick or whatever else you have. And moving along, there's the mSATA drive. They're very small, 30 gigabyte. I meant small as in size, not as in gigabyte, because I do have a 256 gigabyte mSATA on my other PC Nintendo build. Got some RAM, 4 gigs of RAM, so I got two 2 gig sticks. You don't need much for this. And mounting screws, I'm going to be doing a floating motherboard setup where the motherboards are actually mounted on risers. That's why I have the long stainless steel screws. Stainless steel is about the best you can use in here to keep everything nice and clean. Here's the USB cords. I will not be using that much length, but they come down to these chips. These are retro USBs, Nintendo/SNES USB conversion kits. These will be soldered to the insides of these to make both of these work with regular Nintendo controllers. So you'll be able to plug in your regular Nintendo controller into each one of these ports, just like in a regular Nintendo. And that's about sums up all of the stuff that I will be using to build this. And now to get started on the build. This is a very clean case. I bought this case, I bought the actual whole Nintendo on eBay for pretty cheap because it was broken. What happens is it was a blinking light, and the only problem was the 72 pin was just messed up. So I have another older, I can't remember the serial number, it starts with a 004 serial number, so it's in the older without this textured top. It was the smooth top one, and that one had water damage. There was rust and corrosion on the motherboard. It was fried, it didn't work. So I took this one out, bought a new 72 pin, and put it in that other case because I will not destroy a new Nintendo or a Nintendo system if possible. I will only make these out of ones that cannot be reused. So water damaged ones where capacitors have exploded and due to somebody plugging in the wrong power supply, all kinds of stuff like that. But if it's just a 72 pin, I will not harm it. And then I will move on to the hard part, which is cutting off most of these pieces in here. You need to trim a bunch of these off. I like to leave a couple, like I'll leave this one back here in case I can use it to mount something on here. Same thing with this one right in here. One of these USB things fits perfectly right here and will mount this. That way I only have to drill one hole through there to mount the other side. I will be using the original buttons but removing the copper piece there so it doesn't click. I will have to replace I can use the original LED, but I would have to put an inline resistor due to the power of this LED versus what this motherboard wants. This motherboard will give you 5 volts, and this one only runs off of, I think, 3.3 volts. So the easier way I've done it in the past is I have a slew of 5-volt red LEDs. So I'll probably just end up replacing that LED and saving that one for a future project. And after that, these will be modded and soldered to those chips and plugged in directly into these USBs here. So that's how it's going to go. I will keep you guys updated, and have a good night since it's nighttime for me and I'm going to get to work.